Hey all, it's Zach Lokes. Let's talk some food. So, if we're talking about food security and we're talking about the drive of people to find places that were rich in edible biodiversity, it's really important to bring into this the concept of habitat. So, what does habitat mean for you? When I think about habitat, immediately I go back to ecology lessons and biology, and I think about the actual space within an ecosystem where an organism lives and that they're suited to it and that it is abundant for them. It is their space within the environment. So what does human habitat mean? What does that conjure up for you? Is your human habitat something that we even think about? Sometimes you might go, oh, well, human habitat is our homes, it's our cities. But what is really at the base of human habitat? Because human existence goes back much, much further than, civilization, further than this agrarian landscape that we see in the rural areas and the urban, suburban landscapes we see. So human habitat, in a way, should be defined in the same terms as ecology defines habitat for other organisms. Human habitat is, in essence, then, a product of our interactions with other living organisms and our environment, our air, wind, water, soil, in the same way that we define an ecosystem. So human habitat is our space within that ecosystem. What does that mean? Well, if humans have always been attracted to edible biodiversity, have migrated for edible biodiversity, have moved between, the high mountain ranges in the summertime where there was really good grazing lands and forests full of wild fruits like apples and apricots and pecans, in ancient areas of Eurasia, all the way down to the Black Sea and the Mediterranean, moving in the wintertime to areas that were more mild, where there could be access to fish and shellfish and, fresh greenery for the animals. Then human habitat is where there is edible abundance, because that is always what has defined how we moved and where we settled as humans. From time immemorial, and even up until now, you can see that evidence. You can see that, where our largest cities are, for instance, are primarily in areas where there was great access to biodiversity, especially because it was in areas where it was right on the edge between different ecosystems, where there was access to the diversity from an ecosystem that was, along a coastal area and an ecosystem that was woodland, or an ecosystem that was on the edge between prairie and forest. That's where we find a lot of our large cities have developed. Now, there's other factors involved in that, including access and travel and things like that. But if you look at it, you see that humans have always appreciated edible diversity. We have always appreciated having access to many different varieties of foods. And that's because it's one of our essentials. Like right at the core, we need, food, water, clean air, and a sense of purpose and well-being, right? So it's one of those essential ingredients of human health and well-being. And so it was always of utmost importance. So this is a big thing that we should think about in our day and our lives is, what does human habitat look like now? What does it look like to you? Like when you look around your home, your yard, your farm, your urban landscape, how does that ring true as human habitat? Is human habitat walking through a grocery store? Well, I've been to some nice grocery stores, in many areas, and if you go through them and they're full of an abundance of food, yeah, it feels good. I mean, it is a sense of habitat that we have in an abundant grocery store. But what does it mean to have that abundance even more connected to your immediate land? Is there a different sense of habitat when walking through a farmer's market? Do you feel that if you walk through an abundant farmer's market in season? Do you feel connection to your habitat? Is there even more habitat when you can find that there's an abundance in a garden or in an edible landscape right around you? Do you feel that connection to habitat? Perhaps habitat can best be defined as that access to all those essentials in our near to home vicinity and feeling their connection in situ. You know, if I walk out my yard, I have an edible laneway. And just along the roadway, there is an abundance of apples and pears and plums and raspberries and mints and lemon bombs and chives and bee bombs. And, you know, just walking my kids to the bus, there is an immense sense of well-being. I see the food that they can get in their lunches, you know, on the trees. I can smell the flowers. I see the bees moving around. It really feels quite connected. And I've seen this in city parks. We build edible ecosystems in city parks too, right? So it's possible to have that sort of sense in any context. And this really feels like a movement towards true human habitat. So edible biodiversity near to home. And that edible laneway or a linear food forest is a really great concept. And let's get into that in the next Talking Food.